Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started.
Roman Reigns has further hinted that he and Paul Heyman might be done. Heyman is set to be in the corner of CM Punk for this year's WrestleMania 41, as the former WWE Champion prepares to face Reigns and Seth Rollins. Punk, Reigns, and Rollins will cross paths in a triple threat match this Saturday. They have been going back and forth for months, especially after the Second City Saint eliminated both stars from the Men's Royal Rumble match. On Instagram, the OTC uploaded a video of him ignoring calls and messages from the Wiseman. This has further hinted that Reigns and Heyman won't be getting back on the same page, and the Hall of Famer will indeed be in Punk's corner at the grandest stage of them all, unless a massive swerve takes place on the day of WrestleMania 41. Paul Heyman owed CM Punk a favor after the latter helped the OG Bloodline at Survivor Series, War Games last November. After months of speculations, on April 4, 2025, edition of SmackDown, Punk finally revealed what the favor was, and it was for Heyman to be in his corner instead of Reigns at WrestleMania. The OTC asked Heyman to say no to his former client. However, the Wiseman refused, leading Reigns to push his special counsel, and Punk hitting a GTS on the Tribal Chief. Jonathan Coachman believes neither Roman Reigns, CM Punk, nor Seth Rollins will emerge victorious at WrestleMania 41. Jonathan Coachman believes the main event of Night 1 of WrestleMania 41 could end without a proper winner. Speaking on the Behind the Turnbuckle, The Last Word podcast, Coachman suggested a scenario where Brock Lesnar could return and take Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk out of the picture. This could lead to a Lesnar-Heyman reunion. I think there's one way that this thing could end without a winner. That I should have clarified. And you guys know what I've said many times here on the show. If Brock Lesnar shows up and he cleans house, and Paul Heyman leaves with Brock Lesnar, that would be the greatest finish to Night 1 that you could ever write in your life. On the go-home edition of Raw before WrestleMania 41, Roman Reigns shoved Heyman during the final segment of the show. Moments later, a huge brawl between Reigns, Punk, and Rollins broke out, with the Visionary standing tall. For years, Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman have walked WWE's most dominant path together. The Tribal Chief and his wise man have orchestrated an era of supremacy that's left superstars fallen, factions shattered, and records rewritten. But after months of internal turmoil within the bloodline, and a string of subtle, and now overt, signs of mistrust, Roman Reigns has all but confirmed what many feared: his relationship with Paul Heyman is crumbling. It began subtly. At WrestleMania XL, Heyman looked distant, almost nervous, as Roman lost his undisputed WWE Universal Championship to Cody Rhodes. Reigns never acknowledged Heyman afterward, disappearing from WWE television for weeks. In his absence, Solo Sikoa has taken control of the Bloodline's operations, bringing in new members, enforcing his own rules, and, most curiously, keeping Heyman at arm's length. Then came the moment that shifted everything. On the April 12 episode of SmackDown, WWE cameras caught Roman arriving at the arena, not in a limo accompanied by Heyman, but in a black SUV with Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga flanking him. When asked about Heyman, Roman didn't answer. Instead, he coldly glanced at the interviewer and said, "A king doesn't need a mouthpiece when his throne's been challenged. He needs warriors." That quote alone sent shockwaves through the WWE universe. But what happened next added even more fuel to the fire. Later in the night, Solo Sikoa led Jacob Fatu and Tonga Loa in a brutal beatdown of Kevin Owens. As the cameras cut backstage, Heyman was seen watching the monitor with visible concern. He reached for his phone but hesitated. And then, Roman walked into frame. The crowd in the arena erupted as Heyman stood frozen. "Do you trust him?" Roman asked Solo, his eyes never leaving Paul. Solo nodded, smirking. Roman's next words were bone-chilling. "Then he's not my wise man anymore." The backstage segment ended with Heyman standing alone, shoulders slumped, his tie undone, a stark contrast to the once proud advocate who had stood tall beside Brock Lesnar and then Roman Reigns. By the following week, Heyman was nowhere to be seen. WWE's digital team posted a cryptic video of Heyman sitting alone in an empty arena, whispering, "I served the Tribal Chief with loyalty. But maybe loyalty was never enough." Social media exploded. Fans began dissecting every interaction from the last year, Heyman's nervous glances, his hesitations, the moments when Roman would cut him off mid-sentence or refuse to acknowledge him at all. And suddenly, a picture formed: the greatest alliance in recent WWE history was deteriorating, and nobody had seen it coming until it was too late. This past Monday, Paul Heyman posted on X, formerly Twitter, for the first time in weeks. Sometimes the greatest acts of service go unseen. Sometimes, loyalty leads you to your own exile. And sometimes, the end is just a new beginning. #wise man no more. Those 5 words, wise man no more, were retweeted by WWE's official account, adding fuel to an already raging inferno of speculation. Was Heyman truly done with Roman? Was he being replaced by Solo Sikoa's brutal leadership? Or worse, was something darker brewing? On SmackDown, Roman Reigns made his first in-ring appearance in over a month. The atmosphere was electric. Fans were on edge, sensing a pivotal moment. Standing in the center of the ring, flanked by Solo and the new Bloodline enforcers, Roman delivered a statement that removed all doubt. "I built this kingdom," he said. "I fought wars you never saw, bled in battles you cheered from afar. I stood above them all because I had one thing they didn't, control. And when I couldn't be everywhere, I had someone to speak for me. Someone to manage my empire. But this isn't about managing anymore. This is about commanding." He paused, then took a deep breath. Paul Heyman did his job. But the era of whispers and manipulation is over. The era of force begins now. The declaration sent fans into a frenzy. Heyman's name was never said, but his presence loomed. Roman didn't need to say more. The wise man had been dismissed, his services rendered obsolete in the new Bloodline structure, one built not on strategy, but on raw power and fear. Backstage reports suggest Paul Heyman has been kept in the dark creatively for several weeks, with WWE intentionally limiting his appearances to enhance the realism of the storyline. But insiders claim Heyman has pitched an emotional arc that could culminate at SummerSlam, a confrontation with Roman, not as advocate or advisor, but as a man who feels betrayed after sacrificing everything. Imagine Heyman standing up to Reigns, one WWE writer allegedly teased. Not physically, but emotionally. It could be the ultimate twist, Heyman becoming the heart that the new Bloodline lacks. Speculation is rampant that Heyman might align himself with Cody Rhodes, or even return to Brock Lesnar's side for one last epic conflict against the monster he once molded into a tribal chief. Fans have floated the idea of Heyman managing Jey Uso in a storyline where he seeks redemption through helping those Roman cast aside. For now, though, the message is clear: Roman Reigns has cut ties with Paul Heyman. Whether it was cold strategy, paranoia, or simply a lust for a darker reign of terror, he has chosen muscle over mind. And Paul Heyman, once the most influential voice in the WWE, finds himself silenced. For now. But if wrestling history has taught us anything, it's that silence can be temporary. The wise man may have been cast out, but he's not done speaking. Not yet. And when he finds his voice again, the empire Roman built may tremble. Roman Reigns makes it clear how he will handle business after Paul Heyman's major twist before WrestleMania 41. Roman Reigns plans on handling business his way after Paul Heyman decided to corner CM Punk for WrestleMania 41. Reigns and Punk will cross paths in a triple threat match, also featuring Seth Rollins. Reigns and Punk teamed up at last year's Survivor Series, War Games Premium Live event. Heyman had revealed his best friend as the fifth man for the OG Bloodline in their traditional War Games match against the new Bloodline. On social media, Reigns sent a short message and a video showcasing one of his recent workouts before WrestleMania 41. Triple H addressed the issues between Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk. Triple H has addressed the issues between Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk ahead of their main event on Night 1 of WrestleMania 41. Speaking to Peter Rosenberg in a recent interview, the Game discussed Reigns and Rollins' work ethic and their contribution to the company. He also commented on the animosity between all three superstars. Triple H said, "You have moments in time where CM Punk leaves here, but his name echoes here. And people are saying it's the downfall and all this st. And then you have guys like Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns that break their backs rebuilding this to a place where it is now bigger than it has ever been before, bigger than it was when Punk was here. Bigger than the summer of Punk or whatever the deal was, right? Yeah, in their mind, we carried on without you even when you took ISD on us and left and all these things. And there's a lot of animosity there." On the final episode of WWE Raw before WrestleMania 41, Reigns, Rollins, and Punk crossed paths in another brawl where Rollins stood tall over his opponents. WrestleMania 41 was supposed to be the grand return of Roman Reigns, the tribal chief re-establishing his dominance after nearly a year away from WWE. But in the weeks leading up to the show of shows, a seismic shock rattled the bloodline to its core. Paul Heyman, Roman's once loyal wise man, delivered a twist that changed everything. On the March 11 episode of Monday Night Raw, Heyman appeared without warning, flanked by Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and a shocking new enforcer, Jacob Fatu. With an icy look in his eyes, Heyman raised the microphone and declared, "The tribal chief is no longer Roman Reigns. The new era has begun." The WWE Universe was stunned. Paul Heyman had betrayed the very man he built into a god. Social media exploded. Commentators scrambled to make sense of the power play. And Roman Reigns? He stayed silent. Until now. On the final SmackDown before WrestleMania 41, Roman Reigns returned under the brightest spotlight. The crowd at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas rose as his music hit. Draped in a black hoodie and flanked by the Usos, Jimmy, and Jay, reunited for one night only, Reigns entered with slow purpose. This wasn't the relaxed, cocky tribal chief from 2023. This was a colder, calculated Roman Reigns who had been watching the empire he built collapse in his absence. He grabbed the mic, let the crowd settle, and delivered the kind of promo that would be etched in history. "A wise man once told me, it's not personal, it's just business. But when Paul Heyman stabbed me in the back, when Solo disrespected everything I gave him, when Jacob Fatu stepped into my house like he owned it, that wasn't business. That was war." Reigns paced the ring, his voice like gravel coated in rage. "I built this. I carried this company for 4 years. I carried Paul Heyman. I made Solo Sikoa relevant. And now, they want to claim the island of relevancy for themselves? They didn't take it from me. I gave it to them. And now, I'm taking it all back." The crowd chanted Roman. Roman. But he wasn't finished. "At WrestleMania, I ain't walking in to wrestle. I'm walking in to handle business. I'm not just going after the title. I'm not just going after Solo. I'm going after every single person that disrespected the bloodline. That includes Heyman. That includes Jacob. That includes anybody thinking they can crown themselves in my kingdom." Backstage, cameras caught Solo Sikoa watching the promo with a blank expression while Paul Heyman stood behind him nervously fidgeting with his tie. The new bloodline may have been brutal, but they were visibly shaken by Reigns' fire. "I taught Solo everything. And now he thinks he's the new head of the table? The only thing Solo's heading is a funeral procession. And Heyman, don't think I forgot what you whispered to me last summer. You said, when I go with you. But you didn't go with me. You sold me out." The crowd gasped. This wasn't just a grudge match anymore. This was deeply personal. Roman wasn't here for storytelling. He was here for vengeance. Reigns pointed to the WrestleMania sign. "WrestleMania 41 is the end of this story. I don't care if Cody's in the match. I don't care if Seth shows up. I don't care if The Rock walks out with a camera crew. The only story that matters is mine. And I'm writing the final chapter in blood." It was at that moment that Reigns removed his hoodie. Underneath, he wore a sleeveless black shirt that simply said, "Handle business." A chilling message. The next segment of the night showed backstage turmoil. The Usos were stopped by Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who surprisingly offered backup. "If you're really done with the new bloodline," Owens said, "you know we've got a score to settle too." Jey Uso hesitated, but Jimmy simply nodded. The war lines were being drawn. WrestleMania was turning into a battlefield with Reigns at the helm of a counterattack no one expected. WWE then dropped a last-minute bombshell. The WrestleMania main event would now be a tribal warfare match, Roman Reigns vs. Solo Sikoa, with both men allowed to bring backup. That set the stage for the most anticipated confrontation in years. Would Reigns bring back allies from his past? Would the Usos truly stand with him? Would Seth Rollins or Cody Rhodes get involved in the chaos? The closing shot of SmackDown was Roman staring into the camera, eyes ice cold. "Heyman. Solo. Jacob. This ain't a wrestling match. This is Judgment Day. And I'm your judge, jury, and executioner." The lights faded as his theme music returned, this time with a new remix, a blend of the classic Shield-style tones with tribal drum beats. It was symbolic. Roman Reigns had finally merged all parts of himself, the big dog, the tribal chief, and the man who lost everything only to come back for retribution. As the go-home show concluded, fans were left with one message burned into their minds. Roman Reigns isn't coming to reclaim his kingdom. He's coming to burn it down and rebuild it in his own image.